كل نفس ذائقة الموت ثم إلينا ترجعون. Every soul will taste death, then you return to us. Washing, shrouding, and burying the deceased. The deceased should be washed, clad in a shroud, and buried as soon as possible. At least 2 people should be present at the washing of the deceased. It is more appropriate for family members to attend the washing. To wash the deceased, he or she is placed back first on the washstand, tenishir, with his or her feet pointing towards the Qibla. The utensils necessary for washing the deceased should be arranged. These are shroud, gloves, apron, mask, cotton, soap, singer, scissors, towel, camphor, rosewater, or non-alcoholic scents. Bandages adhering to the wet body, normal bandages, bandages in cases where there may be wound or bleeding in the body. Shroud. It is preferable that the shroud should be of white colour and made from cotton. A man's shroud consists of 3 parts: khamis, izar, and lifafe. A woman's shroud has 2 additional layers, a headscarf and breast cover, bringing the total number of cloths to 5. The khamis or shirt covers the deceased from his neck to his knees. The izar covers the whole body from head to toe. The lifafe, as the upper part of the shroud, is used to wrap the whole body. Before the deceased clothes are fully removed, the area from the navel to the knees is covered with a piece of cloth to veil the private parts. Aside from Ghufranak or Rahman, no prayers are said during the entire washing. Prior to the washing, the body of the deceased should be thoroughly cleaned. Special attention should be paid to cleansing the anus. The first part of the washing then resembles a normal ablution. When performing ablution, the deceased face is ought to be washed first, without infusing any water into the mouth or the nostrils. It is only necessary to carefully wipe the inside and outside of the lips, nostrils, and belly button. Then, hands and arms are washed, starting from the right. According to the sound view, the head is also wiped and both feet are washed, again starting on the right side. In this way, the deceased is given ablution. When the ablution of the deceased is complete, warm water is poured over the body before the deceased is then washed with soap water, prepared beforehand in an extra bowl. First wash the front, then turn the deceased on his or her left side to wash the right side and the back of the body. Now turn the deceased on his or her right side to wash the left side of the body. Then the deceased is slightly lifted, the abdomen is gently rubbed. If any bodily fluids escape, they can be just washed away with water. It is not necessary to repeat the ablution. Repeating the washing 3 times is sunnah. Any person who has passed away a long time ago, is in a state of decomposition, already mummified, or has passed away from highly contagious disease must not be ritually washed. If still possible, only water is poured over them. Any bodily fluid or feces that escapes the body after the deceased has been wrapped in the shroud are not removed. The body is just buried. There is no difference between the washing of a man and that of a woman. The described procedure applies to males and females alike. Donning the shroud. After the deceased has been washed, the body is wrapped and covered with duly prepared cloths. This is called shrouding, takfin. To don the shroud is one of the last two duties to be fulfilled against the deceased believer, along with the funeral prayer. There is almost no difference between shrouding men and women. The shroud is donned starting on the right. After the deceased is washed, the deceased and the space where the washing took place are thoroughly dried with towels. After the body of the deceased has been dried, the lifafe, the longest piece of the shroud, is spread out. Then the second piece, the izar, is placed on the lifafe. The khamis is then placed on the lifafe. For men, this is the last piece of the shroud. Now, two people carefully wrap the two shorter pieces of the shroud. Then the deceased is turned slightly on the right or left shoulder, wherever side is more convenient. The lifafe is spread and rearranged properly. Before the body is wrapped into the shroud, cotton pads are used to clog both ears, nostrils, the mouth, and the private parts of the deceased to prevent the escape of bodily fluids. The deceased is then wrapped individually in the shroud, starting from the right side. A female has an additional cloth tied around her bosom before the khamis is donned. Right after, her hair is covered with a scarf. It is only now that she is wrapped in the izar and finally in a lifafe. After the body is wrapped in the shroud, both ends are tied fast. The shroud can be scented with rosewater and other non-alcoholic essences. A belt is tied around the waist so that the deceased can be easily lifted and placed in the coffin, which is then closed. According to Islamic law, martyrs are not washed but buried in the cloths which count as a proper shroud. Burial. After the funeral prayer, the deceased is transferred to the cemetery to be buried. The coffin is lowered next to the grave with the right side of the deceased turned towards the Qibla. It is permissible to build a hollow space inside the grave and mark the Qibla. It is more appropriate for the deceased to be laid to rest by his or her family members. It is more appropriate that a woman should be put into the grave by her close relatives. A female deceased may be laid to rest behind a curtain if necessary. It suffices if the depth of the grave is equivalent to the average height of a human. The deceased body is leaned against one side of the tomb and placed on its right shoulder so that the face is turned towards the Qibla. In case of an epidemic or for other valid reasons, the deceased may be buried in a coffin. The tomb is covered with wood, mud brick or reed to prevent the soil falling directly on the body when the grave is filled up again. Those who put the deceased in the grave say Bismillahi wa ala millati Rasulillah, in the name of Allah and the religion of His Messenger. The deceased body should be always turned towards the Qibla. When the body is placed on its right side, the belt fastening the shroud is finally untied. After the deceased is laid to rest, the body is covered with previously prepared boards. The boards are placed onto the tomb, the grave is filled up, and thus the burial is complete. If for any reason there is not enough space to obtain a single grave, it is permissible to bury the deceased in a grave where someone else is already buried. There is no harm in sprinkling water on the grave, although it is not necessary. May Allah have mercy on all our ancestors. Ameen.
Colonia-Allee.